Welcome, everyone. I'm John Selby, president of Rebellis Group, and I want to welcome you to the very first edition of the Rebellis One-on-One series, 30-minute discussions with critical leaders in our business. Leading our discussion today will be Betsy Seals, founder and CEO of Rebellis Group, and we're thrilled to have as our very first guest Dr. Sachin Jain, president and CEO of Scan Health Plan, which has service areas in California, Arizona, Texas, Nevada, and New Mexico. Betsy and Dr. Jain will discuss the present and future of Medicare Advantage. Betsy, take it away.
Thank you, John. So hello, Dr. Jain. Very nice to be speaking with you today.
Hello, likewise. Yeah,
thanks for having me. Yeah, absolutely. I thought I would start off, I've been in Medicare Advantage over 2 decades, we'll just say, starting off actually at Scan Health Plan and customer service many years ago, and have seen, a lot of happenings over my time in Medicare Advantage. I think most recently, there's been a lot of uncertainty around the program. There's been a lot of kind of unprecedented CMS lawsuits, I would say, based on my experience in the industry. It's more of a trend that we've seen recently based on risk adjustment findings as well as stars, right? And then most recently, although not a CMS lawsuit, the agent broker ruling. So I'm curious to know your kind of perspective on the current state of Medicare Advantage, where we are now.
Look, I think all businesses have cycles, and I think we're in a, kind of what many would call a downward cycle. But I think the big picture of Medicare Advantage is still as bright as it's ever been. When you think about the percentage of Medicare beneficiaries who are on Medicare Advantage, members are flocking to this program because it's actually delivering more value than traditional Medicare. That fact remains unchallenged. I think what has been an issue is that I think a lot of plans engaged in some questionable behaviors. I think that they grew too fast in some instances. They grew irresponsibly in some instances. And I think now many of the investor-owned plans, really held to a 3 to 5% margin target. Now, in the face of declining star ratings as well as declining RAF scores, are pulling back. And they're doing so in ways that actually are hurting beneficiaries. They're changing benefits. They're doing so in non-transparent ways. They're engaging in more aggressive utilization management than they otherwise would have. They're withdrawing their plan offerings and really contributing to the erosion of trust in the healthcare system. And I think one of the things we really pride ourselves on at SCAN is being a not-for-profit, trying to maintain benefit stability, to grow responsibly and ethically, and really to stand by our commitments both to payers and providers as well as to brokers. I think you're seeing every day a new health plan pulling back on broker commissions. We're not, we've done that one time in our history under a very specific circumstance. We suspended broker commissions to limit the growth in a product, but we've always paid our broker commissions. And again, I think we see brokers as a really important part of the whole Medicare Advantage ecosystem. You guys are with the beneficiaries, you're helping them navigate their problems and navigate a very complex healthcare system, and are really oftentimes the front door to the whole Medicare system. And so that alignment and that partnership remains as important as ever. And I think that oftentimes that gets lost on regulators at CMS. It gets lost on people across the ecosystem who frankly aren't close enough to the work to have the strong opinions that they actually have.
I agree with you. So interestingly, we do have a lot of different pressures in Medicare Advantage, and some, I think, especially who have not lived in the industry for some of the cycles that we go through, have kind of asked me the question, what's the future of MA? Is it going to survive? And do you still believe in Medicare Advantage? And my answer is I firmly believe in Medicare Advantage, or I don't think I'd be doing what I'm doing, right, and have done for the past several decades. I firmly believe that it in many cases is the best option for Medicare beneficiaries. And that belief goes back to my, days in customer service. And then now also with my own families, aging and family members aging into the program, you can really see how critical some of those wraparound services are. So I agree. I think it's a critical program. And I also agree that agents and brokers, while one bad apple can spoil a whole bunch in a lot of opinions, play a really critical role in the journey of the beneficiary, both the enrollment selection, but also after in many ways.
Yeah, but I'll push the conversation a little bit. I'll say I think, every sector of healthcare needs to do a moment of self-reflection and look at what are the behaviors that we're engaging in that potentially erode trust with, the beneficiaries as well as the systems. There is a kind of a history of promiscuity in all aspects of Medicare Advantage. Everyone sells everything. Everyone's got a bit of FOMO. They don't want to miss out on things. I think brokers need to familiarize themselves more with star ratings. I think they need to familiarize themselves more with plan quality. I think that sometimes, in the kind of rush to sell something, people are putting beneficiaries into plans that don't have the members' best interest at heart, that might have the best benefits at a particular moment in time. But when you actually need those benefits, um, you know, don't actually have them available to you. And so again, and again, sometimes brokers will, um, you know, are trying to keep their hands in all different plans.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, whether it's Scan or one of our competitors, I think going deeper with a smaller set of plans ends up, and a higher quality plans ends up being better for the beneficiaries and better for the brokers. And I think that there is a bit of a reckoning in our industry where, providers, brokers, plans need to narrow their relationships so that there's more close coordination and higher quality performance for the beneficiary.
Yeah, you bring up an interesting point around, the information that's being provided to the beneficiary. And I do think that the overrides in the industry that have been in place ever since, the MIPA fair market value regulations were implemented in 2008 have caused some issues, right? To your point, we need to examine what the industry, how the industry operates. So while I do believe that there is some ability to course correct and tighten that loophole in many ways,
Yes.
and make sure that we're providing value to beneficiaries. I think that the kind of overarching pushback and regulating those overrides was a step too far, and the industry pushed back. And my view is that we'll land somewhere in the middle. What do you
Sure.
think about that? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, look, again, I think that sometimes in the spirit of trying to take advantage of a short-term opportunity, there's a lot of abuses. And I think everybody needs to be thinking longer term for the beneficiary, longer term for the industry. And I think we need to kind of arrive at that middle place that you're talking about, Betsy, which is what's going to be really sustainable, what's going to create the right incentives for all parties along the value chain in Medicare Advantage, and how do we actually drive the kinds of improvements that and the service levels that I think we want to see all beneficiaries receive. I've advanced a proposal that I think is starting to gain some traction, which is the notion of brokers really being recognized as community health workers.
Hmm.
And, as people get renewals, making sure, they're actually earning those renewals by staying close to the beneficiaries. So it's not just to set it and forget it. That they're helping the beneficiaries with, navigating the complex healthcare system, navigating plan benefits. And, again, what is ultimately good for the beneficiary is good for business too. The closer you stay to your beneficiaries, the bigger your book is going to grow, because I think it leads to more referrals. And again, the best brokers do this stuff naturally.
Hmm.
What I'm interested in doing is just seeing, the agents really, just do this more consistently on behalf of the beneficiaries. If they did, I think we could actually see the brokers and agents as part of the health outcomes improvement story in Medicare Advantage, because everyone needs some amount of care navigation, someone who can serve as their advocate across the system. And I think that that's a real opportunity for the brokers to scrub in and to help the beneficiaries even more.
You bring up an interesting point, and I would agree with you. Many good brokers are doing that naturally. And the comment has been made, over the years many times that they're earning those multi-year commissions, right? Because they're there for the beneficiary to be the advocate. And then I think, of course, on the other side, we see the enroll and you never hear from them again. So that's interesting. What is your perspective on some of those pieces that would it be a contracted, services or part of what they're being paid for?
Yeah, I just think that the renewals should be tied to 3 or 4 things that you do every year. You make sure that the beneficiary is getting scheduled for a primary care visit once a year. You're helping a beneficiary enroll in at least one supplemental benefit or access at least one supplemental benefit. You're making sure that that their refills are organized if they have chronic medications, and ensuring that those refills are getting filled. Just the basic things that I think oftentimes fall through the cracks in U.S. healthcare, being able to assist the beneficiaries with that. Again, no matter whether you're a relative of the CEO of a health plan or if you're a beneficiary has no connection to the healthcare system, you need help. Everyone needs help, and I think our seniors deserve a little bit of hand holding. And I think there's no one better positioned than the brokers. The other thing that I think a little bit about is behavior change. I think brokers and agents are masters of behavior change. If you can convince someone to buy a Medicare Advantage plan, you're really good at behavior change. It turns out that a lot of healthcare workers are not good at behavior change. And so much of what you're trying to do to promote healthy behaviors, to make America healthy again, is to actually promote healthy behaviors. So I'd like to see the brokers and agents really play a bigger role in promoting healthy behaviors, and motivating people to use those gym benefits, to use those food benefits, to use their OTC benefits to access, healthy foods. Those are the kinds of things that I think will make a difference long term to beneficiaries, and actually will improve health outcomes. And I really think that brokers and agents need to lean in more to the healthcare story and not just the accessing care story. And I think that there's an incredible opportunity to do that. Now, I think some of the agents I've talked to about this will say, well, we're not paid to do that. I think some of frankly, the renewals are objectionable to people. And, the truth is, and this is a hard truth I'll share, is, we pay as much as we do for neurosurgery as we do for a Medicare enrollment, over the lifetime. So we
Yeah.
have to kind of ask ourselves a question, like, are we earning the commissions and the renewals? And, where trust erodes in US healthcare is when we get paid for things that don't necessarily deliver the value that we're actually being paid for. And so I think that greater consistency um, within the current commission and renewal structure, is and greater consistency of behavior on the parts of brokers and agents, will actually create the value that everyone claims. And the truth is that in every industry there are knights, there are knaves, and there's pawns. The knights are the brokers and agents who are staying close to the beneficiaries, who are always going to do the right thing for the beneficiaries. Um, the pawns are going to be the folks who are slaves to their incentives, and then the knaves are the small percentage of people who ruin it for all of us. The
Mhm.
ones who get people onto a plan, churn them, don't necessarily care about the beneficiaries and what's really right for them, and they're really looking out for number one. And I think the way we protect this system is to put the right kinds of guardrails in, and make sure that the beneficiaries have the benefit of a broker and an agent who's taking care of them, plain and simple.
Yeah, I agree with your perspective because I've seen it work. I recall one story of an agent delivering a walker on Christmas Day to a beneficiary, right? So when it works well, it really works. And there's a couple of relatively small things that could be done throughout a year to really impact the beneficiaries, engagement and health outcomes. And I also agree that the agent is often best positioned to do that. They already have the relationship. And also they should be great
Yeah, I mean,
salespeople.
Betsy, you
So
you
yeah.
started out you started out in member service, right? And
Yes.
so, I often describe member service and care coordination as strangers helping strangers.
Yes.
And, the broker and the agent of record usually has a great relationship with that person. And so, that relationship is powerful and it's valuable and it actually has the ability to move someone's life and change someone's life. We have to stop leaning so hard into strangers helping strangers and lean more into people who know each other actually helping people who know each other.
Hmm. I would agree. I would agree. So, and just we can clip this. I know Christina's going to take clips of it, but I'm curious, and we can have this on the recording or not, how you're kind of thinking about pushing that proposal.
Well, I've shared the proposal with Dr. Oz in a meeting that I had with him. I've written about it in my column on Forbes. So I think that I'm doing everything, and we're talking about it. I testified before the House Ways and Means Committee, last month, and shared that with they're the governing committee over Medicare spending in the country. So I'm telling everyone who's willing to listen about this idea. Because I do think that the broker and agent story is one that has gotten really distorted, and we at Scan are very pro broker, very pro agent, and we believe that the agents and brokers who are serving Medicare beneficiaries are often doing God's work. I mean, they really are, and they're helping people navigate a healthcare system that has gotten more and more complicated, more and more difficult to navigate, and I think they need to be rewarded for that over the long run.
Yeah, I would agree with you. I'm excited to see where that goes. John, did you have anything to add?
Well, what I'd like to elaborate on a little bit, Dr. Jain, is tell us a little bit more about the testimony. What were the key points? Because there's quite a bit packed into that, but what were the other key talking points that you had?
Well, I think the reality is that we have not really taken a look at why Medicare Advantage has gotten as popular as it is. And the critics of the program, spend a lot of time talking about risk adjustment, and they talk a lot about utilization management, and those are appropriate critiques of the system. But the reason it's become as popular as it has is because the traditional Medicare program has become a rich person's Medicare program. People ask me, should I be on Medicare Advantage or should I be on, traditional Medicare plus a supplement?
Mm-hmm.
And the truth is that if you can afford it, sure, go on traditional Medicare to supplement. But the reality is that the average income for a couple over 65 is $54,000 a year between Social Security income and other income. If you're making $54,000 a year, you don't want to spend close to $1,000 a month as a couple on your Part B premium, your Part D premium, and a Med Sup policy premium, and that's what it costs. And so if you're making $54,000 a year, you don't want to spend $12,000 a year on paying a Part B, a Part D, and now the Medicare Advantage program oftentimes with a $0 zero premium product with low copays or no copays for primary care and specialty visits, is creating the foundation for someone to stay healthy and want to access healthcare. And so in many cases, it's the only option that someone can afford. So, what really drives me crazy is when people attack this program as aggressively as they do, without a view to the fact that it is probably the more legitimate instantiation of the vision of President Truman and President Johnson. When Johnson signed it into law, he did so to create an additional layer of protection and a safety net for people who were enrolling in the Medicare program. And so,
Right.
for people who are over 65, rather. And so, again, I think if we want to fix the Medicare program, we have to look at what's going to be affordable to seniors today. The truth is that the real fix in U.S. healthcare is going to come when we need less of it, when people are aging healthier, and when we provide people with intensive chronic disease management, chronic disease prevention, and that the hospital is truly a place of last resort. And we have too many hospitalizations in this country, too many avoidable and preventable hospitalizations in this country, and hospitalizations are expensive. And so if you want to take cost out of U.S. healthcare delivery, the place to take it out of is in actually needing less hospital services. That is
Mhm.
going to be the answer to the problems that I think the U.S. healthcare system faces from a cost and quality perspective. But unfortunately, hospitals are like the tail wagging the dog in U.S. healthcare. And what we really need to do is just focus more on the health of people and get a system in place that emphasizes more of what we need and kind of reduces less of what we shouldn't need.
So on that point, and I fairly certain you offer chronic SNP plans within SCAN.
We do.
We're seeing statistically on a percentage basis, we're seeing considerable growth in C-SNPs and the rules changing as they are going to make growth in D-SNPs probably less likely. It seems to me that the C-SNP model fits well into the model that you just talked about. How
It
are you
does, but
making
it
that?
does. But having run a lot of C-SNPs in my career, we need to do even better. I mean, let's just say that. C-SNPs are popular. You can sell them year round. They have benefits that align with particular conditions. But what I'm saying, John, is we need fewer of those conditions altogether.
Right.
Right? We need fewer diabetics in this country, fewer hypertensives, and the way we get there is by providing incentives and actually better funding outpatient medical care. And so, again, I'm a big fan of C-SNPs. SCAN offers C-SNPs. I hope lots of people enroll SCAN and members into our C-SNPs. But I think we can do even better as a country, and really focus much more on upstream prevention. And what would it look like in this country if we had 20% fewer diabetics or 20% fewer people with hypertension? That's where we need to go.
Yeah, that makes total sense. The as we look at the regulatory environment and the changes, we've seen as consultants to health plans and providers and others, we saw maybe not a change in mindset, but a bit of a pause from the election and through probably the release of the final notice in Medicare Advantage, and people are getting a sense of what the future looks like now, maybe a little bit. I'm just curious if in your discussions with the folks at CMS and Dr. Oz, if there's any insights that you came away with that maybe were different than you had going into the discussions there.
Look, I think one of the things that are really exciting is actually the emphasis on the PACE model, which is a model that actually can really change people's lives, particularly towards the end of their lives, provide them with more social care and more intensive outpatient management of chronic conditions. And Dr. Oz is a huge PACE fan, and we're excited because it aligns with our strategy, which is we've launched now 2 PACE centers across Los Angeles. We have one in downtown Los Angeles. We have one in Compton under the title My Place Health. And I think these alternative models and more specialization on specialized populations, I think is going to be a real focus of this administration. I think that's terrific. I think there's also a focus on a lot of common sense items that needed more focus, like interoperability, a reduction in fraud, waste, and abuse. So I think there's a lot of great progress and great focus. And I think, Oz is a really smart guy. He was a, world-class transplant surgeon. And I think, to his credit, has done a lot of work to get, very knowledgeable about the issues facing CMS and our beneficiaries. So I'm quite optimistic on what they're doing on the older adult side. I'm a little bit worried about what's happening on the Medicaid side. For obvious reasons, 11 million people are going to probably find themselves without coverage. But on the Medicare side, I would say there's a lot of good work going on at the administration.
That's awesome. Great. Well, thank you.
Yeah, we would agree. And are you in LA, by the way?
I'm in LA. Yes.
Okay. I'm in Northern California now.
Oh, wow.
So,
okay.
Yeah.
Got it.
And so I know we just have 3 minutes left. Are there any kind of final comments?
What I would say is, I think it is a very dynamic time in Medicare Advantage. I think we have lots of opportunity. I actually think that there's going to be more people shopping this year than any year before.
Yeah.
The fluctuations of the star ratings, the increasing focus on profit by the for-profit companies, the nationals, the freeze on broker commissions for PPOs, the termination of a number of different PPO plans is going to make it so that there are probably more people shopping this year than any year before. And I think brokers and agents are going to be more important this year than they have been in almost any year. And I would say, I think we believe that this is a huge opportunity for not-for-profit plans who are oriented around beneficiary stability and service. So I would say just put a nod out there for all the regional not-for-profit plans that I think really do tend to prioritize the people over profits. I think it's an exciting time from that perspective.
I would say that we agree, a lot of opportunity there. And I think really important, as I watched the industry over the past couple of decades, I feel like there's been a shift away from really paying attention to the beneficiary as the most important versus, profit, right?
The shareholder. Yeah.
Exactly, the shareholders. And a lot of leaders in Medicare Advantage over that time period don't really understand the day-to-day struggle of the beneficiary. So I think it's really important to put that first in the decisions we're making.
Yeah, I mean, Betsy, one thing that's different from when you worked at Scan, every member gets my email address, and not a fake one, my actual email address.
Yeah.
In our quarterly newsletter, and I hear from them all the time, and so their problems are front and center for me, and it gives us a chance to actually fix those issues. When somebody has gotten frustrated or spun around by our member services, which does happen once in a while.
Sure.
They're able to escalate to me as a point of last resort. So I'll actually leave everyone on this call with my email address. If anybody has any questions or a problem with one of their beneficiaries, it's just sj@scanhealthplan.com. And I hope I'll hear from many of you.
Absolutely. Well, yes, and that is very unique in the industry, certainly. Well, thank you again for your time. Really nice to meet you, and look forward to staying in touch.
Likewise. All right. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Dr. Jain.
Take care. All right. Bye-bye.